Hey everyone, I wanted to discuss the themes and symbolism within Oshi no Ko. As much as I would love to gush about the character designs, animation, music, and all of the stuff on the production side, that would make this video so long I'd never get to the actual good stuff. A warning before we get started. There will be spoilers to the current point in the manga, so if you do not want to be spoiled, here is the point of no return. Why I did this is because after watching episode 1 and binging the entire manga in 2 days, I realized, hey, I've read this stuff before. Also, this is more the supernatural stuff has been happening since chapter 1, and it's hidden in plain sight. It's more the roles each character has been given. My approach with any anime or manga is to look at the names first. This gets difficult as most of the names are written in hiragana and kanji. However, this changes by chapter 80 when we finally get Goro and Sarina's surnames, Amamiya and Tendoji. This is the first hint along with a few other clues that happen in this part of the narrative. Amamiya consists of 2 kanji, Ama, which refers to rain, and Miya, a Shinto shrine. Tendoji is child and a Buddhist temple. Tendoji is also more curious because together it means gods disguised as children. Duality is the first theme that pervades the narrative. There's way too much of this theme for me to talk at length, so I'll lean on one simple trick, yin-yang, or Inyo as it is referred to in Japan. With this, we can key out a lot of the opposition and balance within the narrative. Love and suffering, sun and moon, male and female, dark and light, life and death, truth and lies, past and future. The most important part to remember, however, is that both yin and yang exist simultaneously within all of us. Let's talk about these eyes. Not every character in the narrative has the eyes that I, Ruby, and Aqua possess. Do they mean anything? Yes. There's a lot of things that they can be said to represent. The power of a star. Later it's revealed that they're eyes that people possess that can turn lies into the truth. Also, we could look at how a star ruby actually looks. However, there's a deeper meaning. This is a story about reincarnation, and Buddhism does have a concept regarding reincarnation. The Wheel of Samsara. There are 6 realms to Samsara, 3 heavenly and 3 hellish. The eyes possess a 6-pointed star and are present in those that reincarnate, so we can reasonably assume that this is a samsara eye. The Japanese word for samsara is rene, so this is a renegon, a literal rebirth eye. Buddhism has a lot to do with life being suffering, and that everyone is caught in an endless cycle of life and rebirth through samsara to continue this suffering until they reach enlightenment. Something about this doesn't fully add up, however. There are characters such as Akane who manifest this Renegon who are not people that have died and reincarnated. So, what exactly are these people incarnating when invoking this Renegon? If we turn to the other religion within Japan, Shinto, we find the answers. The Kojiki and Nihon Shoki are books of myths that attempt to link the births of Japan's family to the Shinto gods. The narrative of Oshi no Ko closely parallels that of these sources, and others, namely the major kami in it. However, there are parts that are so out of character that they are completely unusable. The incest and murder has to be cut. There's also a lot of literal and figurative representation of what happens in this narrative. Also added that the narrative of Oshi no Ko is loosely based on these 2 sources and takes liberties with them at times. Applying the Kojiki to this concept of samsara, we get that the characters of Oshi no Ko invoking this Renegon, they're channeling the incarnations of Shinto gods. We could divine Aqua and Ruby easily enough through the title of the show. The O in the No of Oshi no Ko is the sun and the moon. Let's run down the parallels starting from the beginning. The creation myth doesn't have much happening, but I am sure some viewers will recognize some of these words. The first 3 kami are referred to as the Zoka-sanshin. 2 more kami came into existence after them. Altogether, these 5 kami are referred to as the Koto Amatsukami. These are referred to as Hitorigami, kami that came into existence without male and female pairings. Next came the Kamiyo Naniyo, 7 generations of kami that start with 2 Hitorigami. The next 5 that come into existence the traditional way, by going full Alabama, because they are brother and sister. What really matters though, Izanagi and Izanami. Remember all of this because it's going to be on the test at the end of the video. I just want to point out that the mother of Izanagi and Izanami Ayakashi is translated to awful lady. Now that we've gotten all of this out of the way, this is where the parallels with the myth in Oshi no Ko start to align. Izanagi said that he was too full on the inside as the embodiment of yang, and Izanami claims she was far too empty on the inside as the embodiment of yin. Izanami gets impregnated by Izanagi and then tragically dies. It's not relevant how she passes away here because most of the ways that the kami and other characters pass away in the Kojiki are in ridiculous and more increasingly hilarious ways. And there is something better later on. That Ai's animal motif, the rabbit, is sacred. It represents love and healing. Enter the white hare of Inaba. The hare asks a group of crocodiles to line up so that it can cross, and to do this it has to count them. Upon reaching the last crocodile, it exclaims, "I have deceived all of you." This upsets the crocodile, who immediately skins it and leaves it furless. Izanagi is so aggrieved by the loss of his wife/sister, he travels to the underworld, Yomi, to retrieve her. Izanami claims that she cannot go back and that Izanagi shouldn't look at her. Izanagi, of course, ignores this and uses part of his comb to light up the world. Seeing his wife's decayed and rotting form terrifies him. He flees back to the upper world and seals off Yomi with a large rock. Then, feeling filthy, he bathes to purify himself. This is where the three major kami are born, from Izanagi himself. In some sources, it does say that both Izanagi and Izanami created them. Amaterasu is born from the left eye, Tsukuyomi from his right, and Susanoo from his nose. These coincide with Ruby, Aqua, and Taiki Himikawa, as Hikaru is our stand-in for Izanagi in this story. After Susanoo cries so much because his mother Izanami is dead and gets banished from heaven, Izanagi then goes into hiding and is written out of the myth. Let's talk about Tsukuyomi first. He does nothing. Or maybe he does? There's some passage about him being willing to kill to preserve order. I don't feel that's really doing much. Moving on. The next part will explain why there is so little about Susanoo paralleled in the narrative of Oshi no Ko. It's because he's an asshole, very good at it, and excels at his role. Susanoo first murders the goddess Ukimochi because he was disgusted by the way she pulled food out of her orifices. Remember to never pull a roast chicken out of your anus around this guy. Then, in a competition between the two, Amaterasu declares herself the winner, which triggers Susanoo. He responds very maturely by having one of the most epic Karen meltdowns of all time. He takes dumps all over her palace. He attempts to shock her seamstresses by flaying one of Amaterasu's horses, tossing at them, and this kills anywhere between 1 to all of them depending on source. This shocks Amaterasu so much that she hides herself away in a dark cave, thus bringing eternal night to the world. Where does Akane fit in all of this? She's the parallel to the kami Ame no Uzume, the kami of the arts and dawn. Ame no Uzume only briefly shows up here to bring Amaterasu out of the dark cave using dance. There's also a mirror which shows Amaterasu's glorious reflection upon which light is returned to the world. Amaterasu then takes this mirror, the Yata mirror herself. Ame no Uzume is also possessed. The Kojiki doesn't explain this, so deal with it. Later, a girl with crows appears. This is the servant kami Yatagras. Crows in the West are associated with things like death, but in Japan they're associated with guidance and reincarnation. This is the role this character is given, as is shown guiding Ruby to the cave. When she enters, she finds horrible truths, and when leaves, she's consumed with darkness. A crow could be seen earlier when she visits her mother's grave, and then even later when she finds Ichigo. Then another occurrence when Aqua just to be a complete jerk to him. The last character that shows up with the Rinnegan is Yurikata Yosei. We don't know much about her other than she likes mountain climbing. There is a passage about a kami of the mountains and his daughters later on in Volume 1, but I'm very unsure if this is the connection. So much is unknown about this woman. Amaterasu is the principal kami in the mythology and is the reason behind Japan's flag and is connected to the Japanese imperial family. This makes it very obvious that Ruby is the brightest star in the sky. Also, it's important to remember that even though she's technically married to Tsukuyomi, she's a virgin goddess and does not engage in sexual acts. This is also further reinforced later by a retcon that makes Tsukuyomi the one that slayed the food goddess. Amaterasu then separates herself from him, and that's why the sun and moon are not in the same place in the sky according to the legends. Therefore, the chances for Alabama are pretty bad. Now, I need to return to Buddhism because we were never done with that. The previous stuff indicates that fate has been a strong theme in the series. Note that Buddhists do not believe that fate is preordained. The biggest two themes in the series are love and suffering. The only way to escape the cycle of samsara and attain nirvana is through the Eightfold Path, which I'm not going to go into too much depth here. It's mostly through love and compassion and eliminating the need for worldly desires. Now, while I do disagree with this, it does seem enough for the narrative that Ai escaped the cycle of samsara because she did find love. Ai is our centralmost figure in the series and represents love and healing because she's also our Buddha figure. This brings us to the final story, when Siddhartha Gautama found out he was the Buddha. Siddhartha sat under a tree to understand everything. He was challenged by the demon Mara, who claimed Siddhartha's seat rightfully belonged to him. His demonic host bore witness. Then Mara asked, "Who will bear you witness?" Since Siddhartha was alone, he reached his right hand to the earth. The earth replied, "I will bear you witness." Mara, defeated, disappeared, and then Siddhartha said, "Now I know." This is to mean that Siddhartha had become the Buddha. Mara is also a god of death and is known for killing. In some instances, he is an attractive male. He has the power to change forms and appears to everyone differently. We're typically unaware when Mara is around. His job is to stop us from reaching enlightenment and to stay stuck in samsara. Once his trickery is known, he is rejected. The Buddha and Mara are opposites. Note that there is not one Buddha in Mara, as everything cycles. There are many Buddhas and Maras for each age. Now, why does Ai not reincarnate? Looking at the 4 stages of enlightenment, we can see that at certain points, individuals stop reincarnating at all. Once Ai stopped maundering in ignorance about love, she attained the final level and would not return. So, the light going out in Ai's eyes at her death has a double meaning. She died, and the wheel of samsara was broken. She would never return. The next part is incredibly confusing non-answers into what happens to individuals that attain the Nirvana. The best I could understand is that at this point, Ai both exists and does not exist. She's there, but do not look for her because you will not find her. What we're left with is that since her final scene is supposed to parallel the story of Buddha and Mara, is that she never budged from her beliefs and attained nirvana. The seed of veneration and enlightenment belongs to Ai. Her message of love and compassion and forgiveness is the way for the rest of the characters, namely Ruby and Aqua, to break free from the cycle of suffering. As the Sweaty Otaku in Chapter 106 put it, Ai is a legend. Sometimes our champions fall, and it's hard to accept. Their legends, however, remain. Now, go and watch the real-life story of Oshi no Ko in the Boy Band Con. Or watch this BTS video and pay special attention to the lighting.